afternoon and welcome to the Turing Policy Forum. Today we examine the issue of net neutrality with a distinguished panel of 6 journalists who will interview 4 representatives from different organizations. Please be aware that none of this is real and that none of the people you see are actually representing who they say they are. Let me introduce the 4 interviewees. Ben Warren is a senior aide to FCC Chairman Tom Wheeler. Allison Grabowski is a senior vice president of Comcast. Philip Ballone is a White House staffer in the Domestic Policy Council. And Republican Congressman Tyler Yates is known as an articulate representative of the Tea Party. I don't need to introduce any of our panel of journalists because they are well known to you. Let's start right in. Houston?
Oh, I have a question for the White House senior staffer. Since net neutrality was such a big part of Obama's campaign in 2008 and 2012, why did it take so long for him to speak publicly on the matter after the proposals?
Let's see, so I want to address the misconception that the White House has waited so long to address net neutrality. In 2010, we appointed Julius Janikowski to the FCC chairman position, and he advocated for open internet rules, and we have the 2010 open internet rules from the FCC. So we haven't been idle on net neutrality policy. But as for your specific question, the White House needed to do some fact-finding, and the White House needed to let the public comment on the FCC's proposal before we released any statements. And there was tremendous public outcry. There were 4 million comments on the FCC's proposal, and yeah, that's why we waited.
Sounds great. Peter?
I have a question for Ben from the FCC. How much of a hand has the White House had in crafting this new proposal?
Well, obviously, we take President Obama's opinion and the White House's opinion very seriously, as we did elect them to be our executive. But we also took into account the public's comments, all 4 million. Through some regulations, we have to actually read all of them, and we did. So there's, as you can see, a wealth of information about this topic. So just because we did take the President's advice into account, it wasn't really a huge factor, more as that was the course that this regulation was going anyway. It was towards reclassification. As you could see through the evolution of our proposals, the first one using no reclassification, the second one doing reclassification of backend, and then the third one, the full reclassification, including mobile broadband. That's kind of the way that the whole conversation was heading. And yes, the White House did nudge us, but it wasn't necessarily all influence of the White House.
Riveting. Hannah?
Can each of the 4 representatives please give your point of view on what the average internet consumer wants and how these needs can be translated into policies such that they are serving the consumer's best interests?
That is a great question, Hannah. Let's start with Allison.
Well, Comcast is always very concerned with the needs of the general internet users, and we're maintaining as a company that we are committed to the open internet rules and providing great service to our customers, which means not blocking them from lawful content and not throttling their speech so that they can continue to have a great internet service, and as well as continuing to invest in future spending on broadband so that they can continue to have one in the future.
Very nice. Tyler?
Well, I think a lot of Americans want freedom, personal freedom to choose what they want to do. And as Senator Ted Cruz recently said, I view this net neutrality proposal as the Obamacare of the internet. And so I think, we've all seen how bad that's gone. So I don't think people want this at all. I think they just want to stay with the internet providers that they have, free of regulations so they can be innovative, and, I think things will get better if we don't go with this proposal.
Interesting proposal. Philip?
So we think consumers want to enjoy the same internet service that they've enjoyed since the internet's inception. Net neutrality has been the policy of the internet since it was created. So consumers don't want internet service providers to be able to block content. They don't want they don't want ISPs to be able to throttle content, and they don't want paid prioritization. And that's what the President asked for last year, and that's what the FCC is going to do tomorrow.
And last but not least, Ben.
Thank you. I like Tyler's comparison to the Affordable Health Care Act of the internet, because we want this to be an affordable and robust internet for the people. And so consumers are going to only gain from this proposal. We're going to block paid prioritization, throttling, and blocking, all of which negatively impact consumers and negatively impact innovation of startups and other industries, which all trickle down to the economic benefit of our consumers. and the general public. Thank you.
What fantastic viewpoints we've had so far. After this commercial break, we will be back with some more questions and answers. Welcome back. We will continue our question and answer panel thing. All right, starting us off is Joe. So.
Yes, I'd like to direct this question at the representatives from Comcast and the FCC. In both of your viewpoints, what effects do you think that the most recent FCC proposal and reclassification could have on the American public?
Well, at Comcast, we are already essentially legally bound as part of our NBC Universal takeover, or not takeover, agreement. NBC Universal agreement, where we've pledged to maintain the open internet rules that's already being suggested by the FCC, and we feel that, however, reclassification is unnecessary and will essentially bog us down and stifle innovation. So we feel that under the reclassification that the FCC suggests is essentially unnecessary when we're already maintaining the open internet rules for our customers.
I don't think that reclassification is unnecessary at all, actually. I think 4 million Americans would also disagree with that. The main effect that this recent proposal, as opposed to the previous ones, will have on the American public at large is that they can be guaranteed that there will not be any prioritization or a fast lane, slow lane internet, and they can be sure that when they sign up for a service, they're going to get the download speed that they deserve, and possibly even higher download speeds than are previously standardized. And I think it'll be very beneficial to the internet sharing community at large and the American public.
So Eric, do you have a question that could be directed at Philip Malone? Sorry, we didn't read the him. Oh, he's the White House now.
White House.
My bad.
So if Wheeler's current proposal doesn't pass, do you have any plans on advocating a new plan?
So if Wheeler's proposal doesn't pass, other courses of action include asking Congress to enact net neutrality legislation. We could pursue executive orders to somehow enforce net neutrality legislation. And yeah, there are currently some proposals in Congress for Republicans are currently drafting proposals for net neutrality legislation as we speak, and we could see if we can get some bipartisan support for them as well.
Good afternoon, James. So, it seems that our Congressman Tyler is very, very interested in answering your question.
Well,
so.
in fact, I have a question just for him. So recently, Ted Cruz said that he believes that it would be Congress's job, actually, not the FCC's, to decide what happens with the future of the internet. So he's planning to propose some new legislation that would overturn the FCC's powers in the internet. What do you think about that?
Well, thank you for that question. We at the Tea Party definitely believe that when the FCC was created, they were not intended to have the power that they're currently wielding right now. And personally, we at the Tea Party also believe that Obama has Wheeler in his back pocket and is really just using the FCC as an extension to, get what he wants done. King Obama, recently with his immigration reform, unilaterally just enacting whatever he wants. So we at the Tea Party definitely feel this is just another power grab. So with the separation of powers, we believe regulation like this should definitely come from Congress, and obviously an independent regulatory agency should not wield this kind of authority.
Well, I have a follow-up to that.
Mm-hmm.
I looked up the statistics online, and it seems that everyone in the technology group in both the Senate and the House received approximately $20,000 or more in campaign contributions from companies like Comcast and Verizon. What would you say? Doesn't it seem like that would sort of bias the congressmen and Senate people?
Well, clearly, that doesn't deter Obama, because Chairman Wheeler himself donated over $100,000 to Obama's campaign in 2008, had 20 years of litigation experience in the telecommunications industry, and 20,000 versus a few 100,000, I mean, everybody's got to get money somehow, right? But clearly this goes on all over the place, and I really don't think it would be that much of a bias.
Wow, things are really getting heated here. After this commercial break, we will go and get some questions from some other people. So go get some popcorn, and we'll see you back in a bit. And we're back, and now we're going to be taking questions from our audience. So the first question comes from Greg from Pawnee, Indiana. What's your question?
Hi, my question is directed to the FCC. Why is it okay that consumers can pay for different speeds, but people who are sending their content through the pipes to consumers, they're only allowed to pay one speed? As in, Comcast can't discriminate against them, but they can discriminate against consumers.
Well, that's an excellent question, and it really deserves a nuanced answer, but I'll try to keep it pretty straightforward. Content providers like Netflix and Google obviously have a much higher capital than lower companies like a startup, say, or an independent website, and you don't really, there's no reasonable background or scratch that thought. There's no legal bias or basis for a company that can spend $1 million or $100 million for a fast lane to their website, where you know Joe's backyard yard sale is gonna have like infinitely lower download speeds, and you're not even gonna be able to access the goods. Thank you. That's all I have to say.
Weird.
All right, so our next question comes from Andrew, who's from Paris, Texas.
Howdy. My question's for Representative Yates. I was just wondering why you thought that huge companies like Comcast need defending when they've been posting profits for over a decade.
Well, that's a very good question. You know, I'm a native of Houston, Texas myself, and business really drives the economy. You know, we got to protect our businesses, and then that'll protect the American people as a whole, because that will really determine how our economics are. And you know, people think of Comcast and all these other companies as big evil corporations, but you know, they have First Amendment rights too. You know, it's like you can't regulate them and take away their free speech, you know, because they are composed of people, you know, just like the Hobby Lobby decision. You know, they have beliefs, they have feelings. So I believe that's why I'm defending Comcast.
How exciting. Our next question comes from Will, who is from Boise, Idaho.
Hello. My question is for the esteemed Representative Yates. Sir Yates, how is it that extortion and denial of service fit within a free and freedom world with an open market and capitalism and stuff?
Very, very excellent question. So people hear all these, you know, internet attacks and so forth, and I kind of view it in a different light, you know. There's a lot of security programmers out there, and where would they be without all of these attacks? It's a great way to take theoretical security and, you know, put it into practice. And so I feel like these threats will not, you know, totally bring down the companies, and they'll keep them honest. They'll make sure that things are secure and that they put adequate safeguards in to protect the American people. So in a way, I view it as kind of beneficial to them.
So our next question comes from Kevin, who is from Manhattan, Kansas. Kevin?
Hi, so I have this friend, it's not me, it's a friend, that he enjoys watching all sorts of content, both legal and illegal. And I was wondering which of you had the best proposal such that this friend could continue doing that.
Well, I guess that would be a question for Comcast, since we are the only representative here for actual internet service providers. And of course, we're glad that your friend is able to access content that he wishes currently, but we do have to maintain and stay in line with current legislation. So while we can make sure that he always has access to his legal content, we cannot ensure that any illegal content that he wishes to access will remain accessible to him. But that would be really more, we have to fall in line with such legislation that comes from Congress, so that would be a good question for Representative Yates on how they plan to impact those laws for what counts as legal and illegal content on the internet.
So I know that a lot of illegal content comes from abroad, you know, because here in America we don't really deal with that kind of stuff. We have extra safeguards. But you know, all those communist countries over there, you know, they just give everybody whatever they want, and you know, so I really think we need to cut down on that. So I'm sorry that you can't watch Walking Dead episode 3, you know, from season 2 just for free whenever you want to, but really, we gotta keep up the capitalism. You know, we gotta keep the communism at bay. So I'm sorry to your friend, but really, there's no proposal that's going to let him keep doing that.
Our next question comes from Rohan, and it is for our White House staffer. And he is from Manhattan, New York.
To the White House staffer, how can you justify using your powers of the executive branch to regulate an independent agency like the FCC? I mean, you have been instrumental in releasing policy suggestions basically to the FCC, but I mean, any independent observer will tell you that it's not just a suggestion. You are, I mean, in some direct or indirect way, setting the policy of an independent agency. How can you justify that?
I can't confirm or deny any allegations of direct influence on the FCC from the White House, but I can say that if we had influenced the FCC, we would have asked White House counsel if that would be legal before doing so. And in the past, White House counsel have ruled that that White House staff, like any members of the public, are free to contact the FCC and advocate for positions on proposals that they're considering.
Right, but can you really say that the president is just a White House staffer? I mean, he released a paper saying, or he released an announcement saying that he was in favor of net neutrality. It's hard to equate that with just a White House staffer, you know.
The president did that in response to 4 million public comments asking for net neutrality through Title II reclassification.
But are those 4 million comments really addressed to the executive branch or to the legislative branch, who is supposed to be the voice of the people?
We can't really, it's not on us to interpret who they're addressed to. The American people expressed their will, and it's up to this president to ensure that their will is enacted.
All right, and our very last question comes from Alex, who is from Las Vegas, Nevada.
All right, this is directed, I guess, at the Comcast representative. I was just wondering if somehow net neutrality doesn't pan out, why would this like fast lane in the internet be good? Like what potential does that have?
So to clarify, you're asking if the regulations were not enacted, would Comcast be allowing pay prioritization?
She's asking what the benefits.
What the benefits of it would be if we allow that?
It's a great question.
Well, at Comcast, we are, of course, always interested in our customers' satisfaction. And while we are dedicated to maintaining an open internet, allowing, saying, for, say, emergency, for websites that need to be accessed on a fast basis compared to some other websites. So you know some websites, they don't really have the content that would require such fast connection speeds, but for other ones they do. And while the way that it's being phrased is as a slow level and a fast level, and that's not how Comcast thinks of it. We think of it as a fast level and a super fast level. So the benefit would be that you'd have maintain a great speed for all, a great minimum speed for all websites, and then for certain websites that are willing to pay more, they would get an extraordinarily fast speed for their other websites. So it would be just generally beneficial to the consumer that they would have not only fast, but then some super fast lanes.
What a way to end our segment. When we come back from commercial, we'll go back to our awesome journalists. Thank you. And we're back for some more questions. Yay! All right, so we'll start with Joe.
Sure. I'd like to direct this question at the White House representative. Can you comment on why Obama would appoint Chairman Wheeler, who has significant connections to the telecom industry, when Obama has come out as openly supporting net neutrality?
So we thought Chairman Wheeler's unique experience serving as a cable lobbyist would give him some insights into how to best regulate the cable companies. So we thought that gave him valuable insights into, yeah.
Sure, and as a follow-up, do you not see any potential for conflict of interest with that appointment?
Potentially, but the president spoke with Chairman Wheeler before doing this, of course, and he interviewed him, and he thought that there wouldn't be any conflict.
Thank you.
What an interesting question and an interesting answer. Eric?
So my question will be directed at Wheeler's representative. What are the implications of Wheeler's proposal on innovation in internet?
You know, it's often a point brought up when talking about net neutrality regulations, but I think the data shows there's a lot of evidence that innovation is a strictly American thing, and will continue whether or not there are regulations. You can see in the past when different service providers were classified under Title II regulations that innovation and I think investment really is the key to innovation here. While there are a few points that need to be clarified on what we will or will not regulate so that investors can really wade into the details, I think that there is no reasonable belief that that investment will stop in such a huge industry in America.
I have a question for both the White House and the FCC. It's often said that increased regulation stifles innovation. I'm just wondering what you think about that. It seems like a fairly reasonable thing to say, since excess red tape is often just too much and people can't create new things. So how are you going to prevent this from happening, or what do you think about that statement?
I'll start. So we've asked the FCC to forbear from portions of Title II that we think would stifle innovation and impose an undue regulatory burden on the FCC. And we also think it's important to note that in the 2010 Open Internet rules, investment and innovation was not stifled.
So the nitty-gritty details of the third proposal have not been released yet. After tomorrow, they will be when the vote passes. But we're actually going to modernize sections of Title II, and we're going to actually create a new classification, which has been a point of contention among the commissioners. But we're really trying to do our best here to make sure that we don't just lump broadband providers and internet service providers with the rest of the Title II regulations. We're going to try to apply specific characteristics to them, and really, we're almost making this a niche segment of Title II that really can allow for the modernization of common carrier regulations as a whole.
So my follow-up to that is, what happens if you get it wrong? Like, what do? Are you just going to roll back to what we had before, or are you going to try something less drastic, or what will you do?
No, that's a great question. As you know, the Congress has supplied the FCC with a lot of power to update its own rules, and we'll just do what we have done in the past. When something comes up, we'll change it. As you can see through our first proposal, it didn't work. It wasn't strong enough. We took it to the drawing board, we redid it, and we remade it. If we pass this, yes, there will be more red tape, as you say, to unstick, but it's just as if we have been doing the entire creation of the FCC, is go back to the drawing board and fix it and make it work.
What fascinating food for thought. We'll let you mull that over our commercial break. And we're back. And for our final segment, we will start off again with Houston.
My question is to the Senior VP of Comcast, and I follow up afterwards. So y'all say that you need super fast lanes to maintain profitability in this market, right?
I didn't say we don't necessarily need it to make profitability, but it does provide some benefits to our consumers by offering a super fast lane. That's really what we're concerned about.
Okay, so my question is, since you haven't posted a profit less than 7% in the last 7 years, why are the extra charges for super fast lanes necessary in making the infrastructure changes so that people can have faster access to the emergency websites that they need access to?
Well, I mean, we are providing a better service quality, and if we want to continue to say maybe continue to increase the speeds that we have set for the minimum speed, which would be the fast lane, the super fast lane. If we want to continue that, we do have to continue investment in the future and looking into different expanding our fiber laying and our cable laying. And so by doing that, we do have to charge some extra amount for the super fast lanes. Otherwise, we would not be able to continue possibly. I mean, for several years we could potentially live off our current profits, but eventually we would need to continue to increase the prices. And we feel it's better now to maintain a smaller increase now over the years than to have a suddenly large increase later on when we do need to increase it.
Fascinating. Peter?
My question is for the FCC. So very recently, Chairman Wheeler declined to testify before the House of Representatives as they were voting on his third proposal. Can you comment on that at all?
Yeah, definitely. I think throughout this process, and I'm not Chairman Wheeler, obviously, but throughout this process, the FCC has really tried to keep this proposal streamlined. We haven't released it, we haven't leaked it, we haven't gone in front of court or really talked about much of the details, and there's a very good reason for this. This is a crucial groundbreaking new. Are you even listening to my answer? This is a groundbreaking proposal.
This is getting really heated, guys.
Please go on. And I don't want this conversation. Well, the FCC does not want this conversation to go into. Well, Section A sub B 73 says this. Let's talk about this. We want this to be processed as a package and then dissected later. I think it would just bog down the process for months and slow down really incredible change if we went out and talked about it.
Just like Obamacare, just take it as the whole thing and don't look at the nitty-gritty parts.
We're compiling. Awesome. So, Hannah.
I have a question for Yates. So how much of your view is affected by Obama's support of net neutrality?
Interesting question. So, I believe the FCC was created as an independent regulatory body, and by independent I mean free from any outside influence. So, you know, Republican president comes in, he shouldn't be able to just use the bully pulpit to just push around independent regulatory agencies. So, you know, the Tea Party definitely has a lot of qualms with President Obama and what he's done in the past, but we believe this issue transcends Republican versus Democrat. It's an issue of a politician using his political force to just bully around the small man, you know, and just kind of forcing regulatory agencies to do whatever they want. I believe when Obama appointed Chairman Wheeler that they had this little talk, you know, to make sure there was no bias, and he was like, bro, net neutrality is going to come up, and you better be on my side or you're out of here. And so I personally feel like that this is just more than just Obama. This is just politicians, you know,
Obama
muscling
and 4
around.
million Americans.
What about the other 296 other million Americans?
Wow. What a way to end our show. Thank you so much for tuning in. We've had a lot of fun here on this show, and we'll see you next time. Stay hungry, my friends.